but it's sad that some parents actually force their kids
Yeah.
into uh, uh, following this specific career, right? And because of culture, because of the kid obeying their parents, ends up pursuing this thing. But to what a lot of the parents don't know, it's how much that damages the kid.
Oh yes.
But I think here, like we're speaking on the expectation, right, from the child, right, respecting
Mm-hmm.
the parent,
Mm.
right, and growing up in this culture that's specifically um, that enforces that
Mm-hmm.
that it's normal in that culture, right? But now because they've come here, it's not because it's a different environment,
Mm.
and so and then you have the kid stuck in between two worlds
Mm.
of back home and U.S. or Canada or Europe or whatever.
You know what I find interesting?
Yeah.
That okay, so the child is respecting the parent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
What is the parent respecting? Because the parent is not respecting their job as a parent in
Mm.
order to show up.
Okay.
Because a parent showing up sees the child.
Yes.
But I think most of those times in those cases, the parent sees the value that the child getting that type of career path means for them.
Mm.
Think about how you said cultural expectation.
Yeah.
And we're not oblivious to the fact that I had a friend who he was an engineer. He was a architectural engineer. When he would go to church, his mom was like, "That's my son. Like my son
Mm-hmm.
is an
Yeah.
architectural engineer."
Yeah.
To, being able to form that sentence is what a lot of parents want to pursue, and they'll do it at any cost
Mm-hmm.
because you pursuing that type of and achieving that type of career, you kind of lift the head of the whole family.
For sure.
And so it's life stops being about you, but the way that they can get reputation and validation from you.
Mm.
And so you stop existing.
Mm.
But the provision that you can give them is the only thing that they desire to exist.
So how does that child who's a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
that child who's a lawyer, that child who's a nurse, who's or this like STEM majors, how do they actually start? And I'm speaking to the child who necessarily is struggling
Yeah.
to actually, how do they start walking into their walk, into their actual thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and talk about, in your opinion, the amount of pressure,
Mm-hmm.
right, or the load, the circumstances, the I'm trying to find the proper word, the excuse me, the repercussion
Mm-hmm.
of actually choosing, right, to actually walk and study and choose
Mm.
to do what. And there's a difference between doing what you want to do, right, and doing what's right for you.
Okay. Give me that difference.
So in sense of like, there's sometimes doing what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not good for me
Mm-hmm.
because that's mean like wanting something
Mm.
because of my own cravings, because of my own,
Mm.
So there might be some time where a child might want to take a gap year and go travel and do whatever. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think in terms of like, if you look at what you wanting to do, why are you traveling? Why are you taking this? Like, what are you doing in that time? Because to the parent, that's what goes on.
Mm.
Okay, you want to take a gap year. Okay, so what are you gonna be doing in the meantime? Working. Okay, in the sense like, what do you? Oh, I just want to travel. I want like, I mean, like, are you crazy? Like, are you like? Should we take you to the hospital? Like, what is, like, we need to pray for you,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. And so, but compared to actually doing what's right for you,
Mm.
it's like you actually knowing what you need.
Okay.
Like actually the thing that you need specifically if you're following a certain career, right? If you want to pursue a career in marketing,
Hmm.
right? If you want to pursue a career in uh, uh, social service, right? In social justice, and whatever it may be, right? You'd actually wanting or actually knowing that, okay, because this is the goal that I'm setting for myself, right?
Yeah.
And so this is something that I need, but for sure I know that this thing that I need, those parents of mine who are from Asia, from Iraq, from Africa, from whatever, they're not gonna understand. There's nothing you can say to convince them otherwise.
Of course.
And
They have
so
to see it.
they have to see it.
Yeah.
They have to see it. They have to see, not just see it. They have to see the fruits.
Exactly.
It's not just seeing you work. They just know they want to see the fruits.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so that's what I mean by, like, I guess, yeah, talk about that line between, like, doing what you want, right, versus doing actually what's right for you.
You know, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I love our conversations because it always sparks
I
something
know.
in my
I know.
brain.
We always end up going in the different topics.
Because we were talking about rest, right?
Yes.
And I find it interesting that in order for you to do that, you need to learn how to rest in a decision
Mm.
that you make.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know,
Ah.
because it's like that person trying to break away
Mm-hmm.
from their parents' expectations
Yeah.
has to learn how to rest
Mm-hmm.
in their own decisions.
Yes.
Because if you can't rest in your own decision, you can never rest.
Mm.
And that's why your mind is always
It's always
spiraling,
inspiring. Yeah.
you know? And so, what would it take for that to happen? I think you need to get involved in your ability to explore your own life.
Mm.
And why this is so fascinating is because you're going to become like a baby. The problem with that is a lot of people that are not used to resting their own decisions, they will take that gap year and they'll never go back to college.
Mm. Yep.
Because when they finally get to decide, because that muscle of decision has never been flexed
Mm-hmm.
before,
Yeah.
instead of doing one thing, they do everything,
Everything. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, one, when you decide to make a decision, understanding that decision, but also understanding that, okay, this is my first time
Mm-hmm.
deciding something for myself. I can't fear doing it,
Mm.
but I need to know what I am doing.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you have to be okay with disappointment.
Yeah.
Because once you decide to decide, you're going to disappoint somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, for most people, it's going to be their parents. I listened to, I think it was a famous comedian. I can't remember the exact name. I don't want to give it somebody wrong credit,
Yeah.
but he was saying my parents never respected my profession until I bought a Cadillac. He was like, yeah, they were so disappointed. They kept saying like, oh, this is not gonna do nothing for you. But
Mm-hmm.
the moment he bought a Cadillac, they were like, I'm coming to one of your shows.
My child.
You know,
That's my kid.
welcome.
Welcome.
Because now the cultural expectation out there fulfilled it.
Mm.
He's successful.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say, oh, he's a comedian. Because now, funny enough, once he becomes successful, now let's say the adjacent household across the street from the same background, but that son says, oh, because he's a comedian, I want to be on. And then the parents going to be like, you think you could do what he did? So now he's the standard, Where before he was a laughing stock, he becomes the standard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to come to a point where you realize that you're living your own life.
Mm.
And like you said, you need to learn how to fall in love with the desire of the decision.
Mm-hmm. Right.
See your vision. Don't just say, okay, my parents told me what to do my whole life. Now I just want to do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's a recipe for failure. What is the vision of what you want?
Yeah. Yeah. But also, like,
Mm-hmm.
just hearing your talk, also, like, who, and it's who, like, to the word that you brought up at the beginning, who's interpreting to you this dream of yours,
Mm.
right? Like, who's actually, like, translating to you this thing that you actually want to do.
Mm.
Like, is it you? Is it the parents? Is it the culture? Is it society?
Mm.
Like, who's actually, right, translating you this this idea, right? Because I'm saying this because there's nothing wrong with like doing what you following your dreams, but the depth of which where your dreams came from,
Interesting.
right?
Mhm.
Even to another extent, could it be possible that people dream other people's dreams?
Of course.
And so, if it's possible that people dreams other people dream due to what they saw, so they're replicating it in their mind
Mhm.
and they want to chase it.
Mhm.
So, but they're not fully chasing their dream. They're chasing somebody else's dream.
Mhm.
And so, in a sense, that like that, whoever is interpreting the thoughts in your mind, right, should be the true uh, uh, being of you,
Mhm.
right? Of actually being into, which is why I believe that there's a multiple process, right, to actually being one,
Mm.
right? It's the whole thing like in the Bible where it says that, whenever two people get married,
Mhm.
whenever a woman and a man get married, they become one, right? So it's like, how do these two things become one if there are two individuals, right? So what does that mean actually being one?
Interesting.
In a sense, it's like being in unison. Like what this person does affects this other person, right? What I do, what my body does, doesn't just affect my body, right? Because like I still, me as a whole, I deal with the repercussion of this. What my mind does without my spirit not being present, it doesn't just affect my mind, it also affects my body, right? And so, in the sense of like the process of which to rest, I think have to start with who is interpreting the message running around in your mind.
Because if somebody can come to a point where they can do exactly what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm discovering is a lot of the things that we pick,
Yeah.
we didn't pick them.
Mm.
It's just a rebellion against what was already picked for us.
Mm.
So instead of doing what people have told us to be, we just say, no, I'm going to do everything else but that.
Yeah.
But in a sense, you're still not deciding.
Yeah.
You're just the opposite
You're just the
extreme,
opposite. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's still your body rebelling,
Mm.
your mind rebelling,
Yeah.
but they're not all in sync.
Mm-mm.
And so you're still bearing the repercussion
Mm-hmm.
because, like you said in the beginning, time.
Yeah.
Your time is still being wasted.
Yes.
And that's the only thing you really have to decide. That's the only thing you really have the opportunity to decide on.
Yeah.
Is your time.
Is your time. Yeah.
So a lot of people spend their whole life rebelling
Mm-hmm.
and not actually living in decision.
Mm. In the sense of like, what is time teaching you?
I think time teaches you opportunity.
Uh.
And when you don't see that, you live in prison.
Mm.
And the prison may look like various different things, but one unifying factor you'll always find is that you'll rest but never be rested.
Mm. If a prisoner,
Mm.
right, is always, let's say if somebody was given like a life sentence, right, and they have their entire life they're going to be in this federal prison.
Mhm.
When does it get to a point where that stops being a prison, and to that person it becomes, this is my new world?
Whoa.
Or is that thing still a prison, but to that person he's just seeing it as like, this is now the walls that we, like, for sure we cannot cross. So like, there's not even a hope.
Mm.
There's not even a possibility of, so these actually walls become not just walls but actually becomes concrete. Because in the sense of like, I'm talking about in terms of our mind, there is certain walls, right? There is certain things, that walls that we've set up,
Yeah.
that became perimeters to which we can't cross,
Mm. That we set up.
that we set up,
Wow.
right? And so we only operate, right, in the depth of our mind according to how far, right, I've set this wall. But I think that we forget that we set those walls, right? And so my thinking can't precede this, right? My ability cannot exceed this walls. Like what I can do is now being controlled by, the perimeters of this space, right? So just hearing you talking about prison and how much we've imprisoned ourselves, um, the process to which a person realizes that, to open what you said, that their life is theirs. I think for that person to fully start seeing the full picture of exactly like, oh, I'm in prison. I'm actually not following my dreams. I'm following somebody else's dreams, right? Somebody's been lying to me this whole time. Oh, you know, I've been doing what my parents wanted this whole time. Like basically all these factors that you're naming has always like they've always been one wall, the other wall, the other wall, right? And so that's the thing that's always, but because of the control that you have, and
Yeah.
you're the one who is the contractor, the builder, you're everything. So that's why you have that control, and you're always working, and you don't have the time to rest,
Mm.
right? So what needs to happen to that person to fully rest? Either I feel like sometimes they get into an accident,
Yeah.
right? And they are forced by the environment to literally stop.
Yeah.
But it wasn't by their choice. It was due to an accident that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as they're healed, guess what they're gonna do?
Go back.
Go back. So
Routine.
right. So what needs to happen
Mm-hmm.
for somebody to fully get to take off all those, I guess, personas and bodies and
I
you know
think
those walls.
the way I would take that question is prioritization.
Mm.
I think we prioritize certain emotions,
Okay.
and those emotions are the ones that guard the prison that we're in. And so we place so much importance on them. You ever met somebody that doesn't value happiness?
Yes.
And so it's like something good is actually happening for them, but they can't see it at
I
all.
can say yeah.
But when something negative happens for them, that will be what they will talk about all the time
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they check for.
Yeah.
That's what they prioritize. They don't know they're doing it, but that's what they place importance on.
Yeah.
So you need, and when you're forced to stop, one thing that you'll come to find out is you get to like, the word is metacognition, where you think about your thinking.
Okay.
So you get to like think about, why the heck do I keep thinking about this all the time? Like, sheesh, like it sucks. Okay, I get it. It sucks, but what can I do with my time now?
Yeah.
You start to explore different emotions, different activities, different ways to get in touch with yourself and your mind to kill time.
Yeah.
Because all you have now is time.
It's time. Yeah.
So understanding the routine that you're used to,
Mm-hmm.
and also realizing that that routine, you got used to it in an environment where you couldn't decide.
Mm.
Now that you can, is it something you want to protect?
Mm.
And also understanding that a lot of people, when they come to this realization, they expect by tomorrow
Mm.
to flip the switch and to be better.
Yeah.
It's going to be a process of realizing my mind, my body, and my spirit.
Uh-huh.
I got to intentionally put these things together
Mm-hmm.
because I'm used to focusing on one
Mhm.
and then avoiding everything else.
Everything else. Yeah.
Because in order for me to survive in the environment of past where I had no control,
Mhm.
I couldn't be synced up.
Yeah.
Because the people that are synced up, they leave the house early,
Mm.
or they run away from the situation,
Yeah.
or they leave the situation
Mhm.
because there's no congruency here. I can't exist if I'm under this type of leadership
Yes.
or environment.
Yes.
But the people that do navigate that, that do decide to choose those careers, that do decide to go and become the doctor, the engineer, the lawyer, something in them had to be locked away
Mm-hmm.
in order for them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why they can never rest, because that part of them is screaming out like, no, we're not in sync.
Mm-hmm.
How long are you going to keep me locked up?
Yeah.
So I think it's the process of opening that door. And when you do, sometimes you get afraid of when you open that door, everything you've built now, even
Mm.
though it's not yours, will be sabotaged.
Uh.
And that's a fear.
Mm.
You got to face that fear and trust the fact that we're Christians. So I
Yeah.
believe that God will walk me through that
For
process.
sure.
But you have to come to a point where you realize it's definitely not going to be by your own strength,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something that needs to
That
happen.
needs. Yeah. Yeah. Something that has to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so, talk a little bit more about like deconstructing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That all that process
Mm-hmm.
to initially, being able to like see a new territory for the first time. Like in terms of just like actually,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like whenever every single person, right, is always in either they get comfortable in their environment and the things that they're doing, right, and or they become comfortable in their cell.
Mm.
Excuse me. And so, but the difference between a cell and a room, somebody's bedroom versus somebody, so somebody else, a cell, a prison cell, and a bedroom, right? The difference between a home and a prison, right? The difference between a church
Mm-hmm.
and a business. The difference between uh, uh, you know, a business and the list can go on and on, right? And what's different? Is it how this building is structured that makes it a church versus it a home?
Mm-hmm.
Or if we put couches and a TV in here, does this become a home? Right? If I bring a family and they start living in this church, does this do you know so like what
Yeah.
makes something a home? What makes something a church? What makes something anything? Or is it the label that we choose to give it to them?
I think, did you show up?
Mm.
So what makes something a home is if you can show up.
Mm.
What did you have to leave at the door in order for you to enter?
Mm.
Were you able to enter the house?
Okay.
Or did your body only enter, but you had to leave your spirit?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you brought your spirit along and you said something wrong, you'd be demonized.
Mm.
You know? Um, Darius Daniels says something very interesting. Pastor Darius Daniels. He's a prolific pastor, businessman, coach, top guy. He said, I'm not interested in your grind. I'm interested if you can stop.
Mm. That's interesting.
Because if you can't stop, what is it about you that makes you cannot sit with you?
Okay, so like avoiding yourself.
Avoiding yourself. Because I think sometimes people can't rest because they're avoiding themselves.
Hmm.
And so that prison now becomes a place where it helps you not face the things that you don't want to face.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring the TV in there on purpose, because you're like, okay, I've been in this room so long that I'm gonna get comfortable, because I know out there I have to face the years I've been without my spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and my body was just functioning because
Yeah.
that's all I brought here, and I have to deal with that weight. I have to deal with my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and there are people that really cannot sit in silence. There are people that cannot sit in silence.
For sure.
They have to have something on,
Mm-hmm.
because if they're in silence and their brain is by
They're
themselves,
just going to, yeah.
you know, so it's like. And what scares me the most is there are things that we do in this life that we can be praised for, but
Mm.
it's killing us.
Mm.
So, with all the years that you are living, what is it about you that you had to leave at the door in order for you to call this life your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And Are you okay with dying without that part of you?
Mm. So just hearing you, just talk, the thing that came in my mind is like, who is your ambassador? And I'm saying this because if you think about what an ambassador is, this is an individual. Anywhere that they go, they represent a certain, let's say like a U.S. ambassador
Yeah.
or England ambassador.
Hmm.
Anywhere that they go, doesn't matter if they come in this church, if they enter in this space now becomes USA
Mm.
because they're there. He's representing a whole nation.
Mm.
So any place that he's in, right, that building, that place,
Mhm.
then becomes his office. And if it's his office, then that place becomes the property of whatever he's whatever he's from.
Mhm.
So in terms of just about me saying like, who is your ambassador? In terms of like, who is your ambassador in your mind? Who's your ambassador in mentally?
Mm.
Right? Because if it's truly you, right, then either you're not good at your job. Because if you're the ambassador, anywhere you should go, right, you should be respected.
Mm.
You should be not feared, like respected. But you entering this place becomes yours to, to control. But if you let the Holy Spirit becomes your ambassador, right? Or I don't even know if it's vice versa because if we give the Holy Spirit to be the ambassador of heaven, which he is the ambassador of heaven,
Mhm.
then everything that I'm wanting, everything that I'm praying to the Father, he said, hey, seek first the kingdom and everything will be added. So it's like there's no other prayer that you need to pray
Mhm.
when you make the Holy Spirit your ambassador. Because the home, your mind, and then becomes filled with everything you could ever want.
Mhm.
And then you just now go to the process of actually, right, attaining and accepting and communicating with God to actually see and receive what He's giving you. But if you've let fear become your ambassador, it's going to invite. So this whole room in your mind is going to be of whatever fear brings. If you've let, depression, if you've let the whatever it may be, whoever you've allowed to be your ambassador mentally is who's actually operating your body and your mind.
You know the funny thing about that is the level of power you have comes from the country you represent, and so they give you,
Hmm.
and what you can do comes from the country you represent.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly,
you
exactly.
can't be from a smaller country going to a bigger country and demanding things.
Right.
It's a negotiation,
Hmm.
but negotiations come from the authority that you can come to the table with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very interesting metaphor because also is a sense of when you're representing something,
Hmm.
that is also what people see you as,
Mm. Facts. Yeah,
you know?
that's good. Yeah.
And so you can only give what you receive.
Hmm.
What you receive is what you decide to hold.
Hmm.
And so if I'm proud of it, because some people, like you said, they've been in the prison so long that they're proud of it.
Hmm.
And then, but they expect you to do better.
Yeah.
But to them, they just have excuses,
Yes.
you know?
Hmm.
And so, because it's like, no, like, well, this is the country I'm from.
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
all our resources.
Hmm.
We can't do nothing
Yeah.
else. But you,
Hmm.
you should be able to do better,
Yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
And so, do you think that you can come to a place where if you decide to detach from that country,
Mm.
what are you left with?
Mm.
And I think it could be a very vulnerable and isolating feeling when you have no backing.
Hmm.
But how would you navigate that type of environment? Like, how would you feel being disconnected from everything that has represented you or given you authority in the past?
I feel like it's in a way the thing that came in my mind when you said that is it's a police officer. If let's say a police officer from Austin goes to London, right? He doesn't have any jurisdiction there.
Mhm.
He's a cop here, but as soon as he gets to London, he's no longer a cop. He can show his U.S. badge and everything. They'll be like, "Oh, that's cute."
Mhm.
You know, I recognize you as a police officer, but you actually can't arrest anybody there. So, in a sense of like, that police officer from Austin can only operate
In Austin.
in Austin due to the law that was set forth, right, by the Texas government, right? Even if this cop here, right, which is why you know how they always have different types of, I guess, hierarchy of or different types of law enforcement.
Mhm.
You have your city, right? You have your sheriffs, right, and then you have your constable and all this other. Because the sheriff, right, or the state troopers, let me say that, the state troopers, they can go anywhere in the state.
Mhm.
They can chase you from here, to Terlingua, you know,
Mhm.
and still because the whole state is their jurisdiction. The city cop, they can chase you, but as long as you enter a different county, they have to call that county's police. Hey, we're chasing this individual. They're entering your county. We need your help. So then, because they've entered this county, and then becomes that county's
Responsibility.
responsibility. Now they're chasing.
Mm.
So in a sense, I'm saying all this to say is like you need to see out of all this who you are. Are you the city police? Are you the state trooper? Or are you the governor? Right? Or are you the lawmaker? Some people they don't see themselves as the lawmaker.
Mm.
Is this mindset of they've always been served. They can't serve.
Mm.
Why? I don't know. Could it be due to certain the way systems are teaching them? Probably. The way their families are teaching? Probably. But the fact that a lot of people don't see themselves as problem solver, they see themselves as people with problem, you know, them seeing themselves, they don't see themselves as the lawmakers, right? Right?
Do you think that they can only get to a place of understanding if they rest?
For them to truly get to understand, they have to rest. And by resting is by literally going in. So to me, whenever I say rest, the thing that comes to my mind is whenever Jesus went to fast and pray for 40 days. To me, that's rest, right? Moses, right? Going to, to speak with God, however long he took there. That's rest. Any single time you go at a place and you there fully and you get to be one with God or other people, the creator, right? In terms of just like, because by you being there, by you disconnecting from literally everything that's distracting you and being present, right? Which is why to some people, rest is fasting.
Mm.
Is because they're telling their whole body, hey, we're going to stop this. We're going to pause this. And we're going to renew ourselves.
Mm.
We've gone the wrong way. You're gonna have to go back to the place that you've been avoiding this whole time
Yeah.
because you've gone the long way. You just like, I don't want to go. That's where I've experienced this hurt. That's where this thing happened to me. That's where, and God might be saying, hey, that's the place where everything went wrong. Because this is a place where you were not mentally focused. That's whenever this is where you actually took the wrong turn. And sometimes freedom doesn't think to me it seems different. Because freedom to me is freedom with me and God.
Okay. Interesting.
Not freedom with just me.
What is freedom with you? What does that mean to you?
Freedom with me is literally me choosing to go do whatever I want to do. I can go kill somebody. I can go steal something. I can literally do whatever I want to do. Right? That's freedom. And the consequences that happen to me, that's still part of my freedom.
Interesting.
True freedom, in my opinion, right, is fully getting to follow every law that the Bible tells me to follow. And then I get to reap the benefit of what fully my body was actually designed to actually do.
Mm.
Right? So it's like feeling this can, right, with the actual proper liquid. Because I mean that there's a soda in here,
Hmm.
there's a water in there, but I can actually get that water and I should pour in here,
Right.
right? And so, in a sense, like we have a specific liquid. Let me say that
Hmm.
we have a specific things that we were meant to actually follow and apply into our body, so we can fully be free with Jesus.
What does it look like to be a lawmaker then? Like, let's say you reach that stage.
Hmm.
So then I'm free and I'm free with Jesus. So what does being a lawmaker look like then?
So being a lawmaker is fully executing your birthright, your creational right, if that makes any sense. Is being a lawmaker is truly doing what you were meant to do here.
So putting yourself in the mindset of somebody that's used to being in the prison, right?
I've never been arrested. I'm kidding.
But let's say you're now realizing that I have the ability to be a policymaker in my life. I have the ability to like have and recognize that I have value here in this life that I'm living. If you're putting yourself in that person's shoes, how do you think you would feel listening to this message?
I feel like I'll be encouraged. I'll be I feel like I would be. I feel like it's like we're giving, or I've been given a. It's I'm speaking as the person, right, who has been, let's say, facing some hard times or whatever, and
Mhm.
I'm hearing this message. I feel like it will be a reassurance that for me to fully take control back of my life.
Yeah.
It's like the place that I was, right, like where I was, right. It's literally is in that sentence. You was. So stop dragging it that place with you everywhere you go,
Mm.
right? So it's like leave it. Even if you were wrongly accused, even if you actually did something, whatever circumstances that led you to actually do this mentally time, right? However you got there, whether it's from your family abuse, right? Relationship abuse, whether it's systemic, racism, whatever the thing that led you to you being in this prison of your mind, right? When you get out, because you've been there so long, that everything else is going to feel different.
Mm.
So because of that, sometimes you the person almost like goes back, commits the crime again, so they can just, because like, oh, okay, oof, like I know I'm familiar with this cell. Like
Mhm.
I'm okay managing only this. I was fine being told what to do,
Mhm.
and so, but hearing, like hopefully by them hearing this message, it will spark something in their mind for them to actually start going to look for answers.
Mhm.
Right. Again, everything we say here is our opinion.
Mhm.
Right. The things that how maybe we see the world, and so hopefully that starts a conversation within yourself. Right. Hopefully it starts a conversation within that person to truly get to actually live in the present
Mhm.
and not in the past. Because I feel like people often live in the past more than they know
Why is it so attractive?
because it's familiar.
Mm.
It's what they know. It's what they've customized themselves to that environment. So all they know is this because they've spent a lot of time there. It's almost like, I mean, I was born in the Congo, but I spend majority of my time here in the USA. So if you will pick me up and put me back in the Congo, I will feel out of place.
Mm.
But if I stay there longer, I'm going to feel home again.
Mm.
And so I think the question is, are you willing to rest, right? Actually into your nature, right? Long enough for you to actually realize that this is actually home,
Mm.
right? Or is it this whole thing of like us feeling like having the urge to like we're always impatient. And because I'm here and I'm lonely and I can't find anybody, I'm gonna go back over there. Right? Because of this, again, confirming to the world,
Mhm.
confirming to those people, confirming to these habits,
Mhm.
confirming to this ideology, confirming to this mindset, right? Going back to this ambassador of whatever, right? And so just like for me to fully get to experience home the way my parents talk about it is I need to actually go to the place. They're gonna make fun of me that I don't speak the language. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I've lost my culture." But if I stay there long enough, I'm going to adapt to that environment as well.
Right.
So I think giving yourself time, giving yourself permission to actually resisting all this other confrontation you're about to experience, knowing that you actually are going home, right? It's like it's gonna hurt, but I think like give yourself that rest, that patience to truly get to experience the flow and the way of home, so you can truly get to experience it.
Wow.
Yeah. What about you?
I think that's a very good way to frame it because something I always said is, you know, you can only be a foreigner for so long until you're a resident,
Mm.
but you have to be in the spot
Wow,
in
that's
order for you
good.
to be a resident. And so, sitting with the emotional discomfort, the emotional pain, and recognizing that all that is a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
Not You're not trying to escape everything you're going through is you.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's you, you have the ability to navigate it because it's you. Um, and you're becoming a resident here
Mm-hmm.
where it's very uncomfortable because you're a foreigner in your own body.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a foreigner in your own mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're a foreigner in your own spirit.
Yeah.
But the more and more you stick with the presence of your presence, you become a resident.
Mm.
And now somebody can ask you, how do you feel about that? And you can authentically answer.
Yeah.
You don't borrow somebody else's policy to answer the question. You don't borrow somebody else's timeline to
Mm-hmm.
dictate where your life should be.
Yeah.
You can authentically look at them and say, I'm doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
But that can only happen if you stick with yourself long enough so that you can become a resident
Mm-hmm.
in your decisions. You can rest in your body.
Mm. Mm. That's good. That's really good. Um, what would be the last? I know another last little initial thing that you might encourage people to do for them to truly get to start finding rest, right? What are some things should they start recognizing and
Mhm.
you know?
I think number one, focus on the fact that you're here doing the things that you're doing. It's not, I'm chasing a goal. You're actually here doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So taking taking inventory of the things you've already done. Some people they don't really see their accomplishments. They can't acknowledge their successes. All they can see is the gap.
Mm.
And the gap is what makes them not be able to sleep.
Yeah.
The gap is what makes them not be able to um, find peace. But then you realize, okay, if I told you now, I'm going to take you and make you become the same person you were last year, would you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Chances are you're going to say no. You're going to say no because you'll be like, I did so much work. So, where is that I did so much work in the lack of peace you feel now?
Mm.
So, realizing that you are the one doing and you're still doing. And I think prioritizing days where um, your to dos, your I have tos, you need a day where you're just like, I enjoy. Like, take a bath,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
put a video on and just watch it. Don't have it as background noise. Clear everything and let this be a day where you just become in touch with yourself. Because when you prioritize so much of the I have tos, when do you ever get to enjoy?
Yeah.
You spend your whole life and I have to. You realize your whole life was spent and you never were present for it.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the guy's name, but he said he was a famous guy. And he said, man, I came so far in life. Because the guy, he was on a podcast, and the guy on the podcast was telling him, like, your life is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm praying that my kids and I can get to that extent that you have reached.
Mm-hmm.
Because, man, you did this, you did that, you did
Yeah.
that. And the guy he was interviewing just looked at him. And then he just took a deep breath and he said, man, I'm sure you see my life as amazing.
Yeah.
But it only became amazing when I went back and brought myself along.
Mm.
He said, for the most part, for this amount of years, I wasn't here for it. And so, this amount of years, he said he spent self destructing.
Wow.
But people were praising him for it because he still had the money, he still had the cars, he had the cultural expectation of people with money. And then he realized none of this was me. Or we would say, none of this was
Yeah.
my policy. So he had to go back and figure out, why am I such a foreigner in myself?
Yeah.
Why can't I sit with myself? Why can't I rest? See, I hope you understand in this conversation, we're not talking about rest solely as going on your bed. We're talking about rest in the sense of
Peace.
peace,
Mindfulness.
mindfulness, the ability,
Clarity.
clarity, the ability to sit in your body, recognize that that's where you are and be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I hope being able to take days and recognize your progress, days for resting, and I'm praying that everything you do from now on, you bring yourself along, all parts of yourself. You leave nothing at the door. What do you think, brother?
No, like you said it. Sometimes you can't find yourself because you literally can't find yourself.
You denied your entry.
You denied your entry. You left yourself somewhere, right? You've left yourself at this stopping place where you were really hurt. And so whenever you were moving, you were just moving with what your knowledge had taught you.
Mm.
So you were using on borrowed battery life.
Mm.
And you get to a point where like the battery's getting low and you look and you just like, man, like can I don't like myself. I don't love myself. I can't find myself.
Mm.
I don't know what, because you literally can't. You've left yourself somewhere
Wow.
along your past. So just hearing you talk, it's going to take the initiative. But us saying rest, it's fully getting to stop before that battery runs out
Mm-hmm.
and get to see with what you have. Can you rest there, right? And see if you can retrace your steps to where you left yourself.
Very important.
And you literally have to go mentally, spiritually. You have to walk back and pick yourself back up.
Yeah.
And ironically, sometimes we leave that to other people, maybe people we look up to be able to guide us
Mhm.
to where they don't know where you left yourself. Only you know where you left yourself.
Yeah.
They can help you see where you left yourself, but you have to do the work. You can talk to a therapist. They can guide you. They can show you a map. They can try to be like, oh, this is what this means. They can try to clarify things. You can talk to a pastor. They can clarify things.
Hmm.
They can show you things. But actually doing the work for you, they're not going to do the work for you. You are going to literally get up and walk to whatever you left yourself and pick yourself back up. Because whenever you pick yourself up, you're no longer going to be like, okay, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I found myself. Oh, okay, this is what. Now you're then going to pick up yourself, re energize because you've got the rest, and you're going to carry yourself to your next destination, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't. You cannot borrow somebody else's pride in their life
Mm-mm.
to supplement your lack.
Mm-hmm.
And so, going to all these people and asking them and seeing how they're living and their policies and their lawmaking skills and getting that high, that split motivation of wow, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you can't take that and make it yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to find, like he was saying, where you left yourself. And the funny thing about that is, just because you find yourself doesn't mean life will not be hard anymore.
100%.
But at least it'll be hard and you'll be present for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sensitive topic, but I think suicide happens when a lot of people are just so disconnected from themselves. Everything. They cannot be in touch with anything.
Yeah.
And everything feels like a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if that's something that you're contemplating, I would tell you that it's not you that needs to die, but the way that you've been living needs to die because you're of value. And if you can look down at your feet and recognize that you are not where your shoes are, then you left yourself behind. At one point, self abandoning became what the right thing for you to do because it was sold to you as the right thing to do. But we can see the fruits of that.
Mm-hmm. In a sense, you're killing the wrong thing.
You're killing the wrong thing.
It's like it's not you.
It's the policy.
It's the policy. It's the information. It's the things that your trauma, the things that your anxiety, the things that your depression presented you with.
Yeah.
And so, can you see beyond depression?
Mm.
Can you see beyond anxiety? Can you see beyond trauma? Because that's where the true seed of the hurt is.
And the thing is, if you can't, then you recognize that your flesh, your body's
Mm-hmm.
here,
Yeah.
but your spirit is not.
Mm-hmm.
Because your body's feeling everything, but your spirit is not here.
Yeah.
Or your spirit is here and your body's here, but your mind is not.
Yeah.
So either way, you recognize that you left something at the door
Yes.
and these walked in, but you denied a part of you entry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part will help you supplement that hole that's in you.
100%. And so for that, I would encourage you to do one of the three things, if not
Mhm.
all of them. Get a journal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just a brand new journal. If you've been journaling in a specific journal, get a brand new journal, right? Just title it like your own personal journal, your thoughts. This is where also get, maybe if you're a Christian, get a book, get a Bible.
Yeah.
If you're not a Christian, find another mindfulness or book that teaches you, right, to like mindfulness in terms of calming your mind. All I'm saying is like creating time within your day for yourself.
Right.
So by creating this time, you're creating rest. So again, when we talk about rest, we kind of it's clarity, it's mindfulness, it's peace of mind specifically. So by creating this time, whether it's at night, whether it's in the morning, whether it's during lunchtime, find a time. It can be 10 minutes, it can be an hour. However, depending on what your schedule is, and journal. Everything that's in your head, write it down as if you're speaking to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down as if you're speaking to God. If you're Christian, get your Bible. Read your Bible, right? Stop playing the victim the world makes you to be,
Mm.
and actually speak to, you know, a God, right? If you believe that he can actually, you know, though he overcame death and everything, then it shouldn't be hard for you to submit to him and
Mhm.
let him actually do his thing. So all I'm saying is create time, journal, pray, go exercise, do something healthy, something else, eat something healthy, and go do some sort of exercise. Go for a run, go for a walk. You know, somewhere with what is by the water, but literally just get out of your house, get out of your office, get out of your normal routine, and create time for you and nature.
Right.
And I promise you, that's going to shift and change the way you feel, because you've literally choosing by force to rest. You're telling all of your internal systems, so hey, we need to take a pause. We're going to do this right now. So you're actually teaching yourself to be in control, right? Of actually to be in control of recognizing whenever you need rest and whenever you don't, right? And so because we struggle with control, but the control that we struggle with is not the control that we actually the one that we think we have of doing what we want to do. Is the control of which the systems give us,
Mm.
right? And so by you finding rest, you tend to, and by you journaling, by you praying, by you meditating, by you eating healthy, walking, doing some sort of healthy something every single day is going to create this sense of happiness, sense of breath, a fresh, a brand new, fresh air that you get to breathe, and actually be able to just like release whatever it is that you might be going through. So yeah, that's my advice to the thing that truly helps me is having that time to journal, read the Bible, right? Read a book, go exercise, walk, rock, run, bike,
Mhm.
right? Getting time to actually call a friend.
Mhm.
Be like, hey, how was your day? Just do something genuinely nice,
Right.
not just for you, but for even somebody else,
Mm.
right? If it can be even, just go buy a homeless guy a food. You just go by and give it to them.
Mhm.
Just do some sort of act of kindness, and I promise you that's going to change and shift your day.
I hope this helped.
Yeah, yeah,
These are our opinions,
exactly,
but in terms
exactly.
of freedom expressed, this is our lens on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hopefully, it would give you some considerations for you to challenge your thoughts, challenge your systems,
Mm-hmm.
challenge your routines, or even to start a conversation with your community,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
But it's been Mado Janvier.
My name is Espoir Ndeba, and this has always been Freedom Express. And thank you so much for always listening and always staying in tuned. We highly value your opinion. So if you have any comments, please feel free to write it down below and yes, giving us your thoughts. Maybe you might have disagreed on something we've said. We want to hear it from it. Comment down below. Maybe we can address it, in the next episode. But honestly, we appreciate you guys for always staying tuned and always listening. So thank you.